Shake. Shake. Come on. Oh, okay. Hello. How are you?
Good.
Good to see.
It always starts with an image, doesn't it? A smiling face on camera, a story told just the right way, and a family presented as if everything was built on faith, discipline, and unity. For Micah Plath, that image was carefully constructed by TLC. The golden boy of Welcome to Plathville, the son who broke away from the rules, who modeled hard work and perseverance, who represented a kind of polished redemption arc after growing up in a home where even sugar and television were banned. On screen, he looked like the one who had it all figured out, but the cracks in that picture-perfect story didn't take long to show. What happens when the reality behind the camera doesn't line up with the storyline that millions of viewers are sold? That's the question we're facing when we talk about Micah. Hi friends, my name is Sophie, and welcome back to my channel, Sister Wives Chapter and Reality Scandals Daily. If you love truth-telling commentary, if you want the real stories behind the glossy edits, then you are in the right place. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, like this video, and most importantly, leave me a comment down below. I want to hear what you think about this, because trust me, everyone has an opinion when it comes to Micah's journey. Now, to understand where Micah is today, you have to remember where he came from. Welcome to Plathville introduced him as one of Kim and Barry Plath's 9 children, raised on a rural Georgia farm. The Plath kids grew up in one of the most sheltered environments on reality TV. No sugar, no soda, no television, no internet, and absolutely no access to the outside world unless it was filtered through their parents' strict rules. It was a world designed to keep temptation out, but what it really did was delay the inevitable collision between the Plath kids and the world beyond their driveway. Micah, like his siblings, had to learn who he was without the structure of the farm. When the show began, viewers saw him struggling to fit into that strict Plath mold. He wasn't like some of his younger siblings who still lived under Kim and Barry's roof, fully committed to the family's way of life. He wanted something different. And as the seasons progressed, TLC painted him as the son who would break free but still land on his feet. The hard-working young man who went from sheltered farm life to modeling in the big city. When he first stepped into the modeling industry, cameras captured the awkwardness of someone who hadn't even seen mainstream culture growing up. Fans will remember those early shoots, Micah learning how to pose, how to walk, how to hold confidence in front of strangers. And TLC framed it as this underdog story, the boy who had been denied normal teenage experiences, suddenly transforming into a disciplined, independent man chasing a dream. It was compelling, it was inspirational, and it was exactly the kind of narrative reality TV loves to sell. But what we now know, and what viewers slowly began to sense as the seasons unfolded, is that the reality wasn't nearly as clean-cut as the storyline suggested. Because behind the modeling shoots, behind the edited conversations, and behind the smile that TLC spotlighted, Micah was living in a very different world. From the very beginning, TLC wanted us to see Micah Plath as the breakout success story of Welcome to Plathville. On screen, his arc was simple and almost too neat. The sheltered farm boy who shook off his parents' rules, struck out on his own, and became this clean-cut, hard-working young man in charge of his destiny. He was packaged as the embodiment of freedom done right, independent, disciplined, ambitious. The kind of son viewers could root for. In those first seasons, we watched as Micah tested his wings, leaving the Plath farm, moving out with Mariah, and slowly carving out his modeling career. The edits were deliberate. TLC gave us montages of him working out, practicing poses, taking those first awkward professional headshots, and eventually booking real gigs. The storyline was crystal clear. Micah was the proof that you could break away from the Plath bubble and thrive. But the longer we watched, the more cracks appeared between that polished image and the person Micah was becoming off-camera. When he moved to Los Angeles, the contrast sharpened dramatically. TLC still framed him as a young man, finding himself, but viewers began noticing what the cameras couldn't fully hide. A nightlife creeping in, a social circle that looked very different from the sheltered Georgia boy we met in season 1. Episodes began sprinkling in small but telling hints. Nights out stretched later and later. Conversations with friends revealed just how far Micah was pushing his boundaries. Modeling wasn't just work anymore, it was a gateway into parties, drinking and experiences that clashed with the wholesome narrative his parents had once enforced. Family reactions made this divide even more obvious. Kim and Barry, while controlling in so many ways, couldn't ignore what they saw. Barry's awkward commentary hinted at concern, questioning whether his son's new lifestyle was sustainable. Kim, ever the strategist, framed Micah's choices as part of his journey. Though viewers could read between the lines, this wasn't the son she had once raised to embody obedience and restraint. And then there were the siblings. Moria often stood by Micah, celebrating his independence, but even she couldn't mask her unease when the party lifestyle grew louder than the discipline he once showed. Ethan, more cautious and quieter about his own struggles, made offhand comments that revealed a deeper worry about how fast Micah was changing. Red flags started stacking up right in front of the audience's eyes. Episodes showed late-night calls, glimpses of after-hours events, and subtle editing choices that hinted at things TLC wasn't saying out loud. It was as if the producers wanted to maintain his success story image, but they couldn't completely hide the shift, the nightlife, the parties, the constant thrill-seeking. For the first time, viewers were forced to ask, was Micah truly becoming the man TLC wanted us to believe in, or was he simply spiraling into a lifestyle that looked glamorous on the surface but carried consequences no one wanted to admit? By the time Micah's story reached the chapters with Veronica, the contrast between his on-screen persona and off-screen life became impossible to ignore. On Welcome to Plathville, their relationship was framed as a tender, almost idyllic romance, two young adults trying to navigate love amid the chaos of family drama. TLC positioned Veronica as grounded, honest, and emotionally open, the perfect counterbalance to Micah's polished, ambitious image. Viewers watched their courtship unfold with curiosity and empathy. Micah seemed attentive, charming, and ready to build a future with Veronica, while she navigated the challenges of loving someone whose life had already been partially scripted for television. At first, the show highlighted sweet moments, quiet dinners, discussions about careers, and glimpses of intimacy that suggested real connection. For the audience, Veronica became the heart of authenticity, a relatable young woman experiencing the thrills and frustrations of dating someone whose public image often masked his true self. But as the episodes progressed, cracks in their relationship began to appear. Veronica's discomfort with Micah's lifestyle, particularly as his Los Angeles nights and modeling world collided with their relationship, became more pronounced. She voiced concerns about his late nights, the inconsistency between his words and his actions, and the secrecy that sometimes crept into his life. Viewers saw her grappling with a tension everyone could feel. She wanted honesty, but the Micah she knew from TLC's portrayal often didn't match the man showing up in reality. The emotional weight of these moments is where the show really drew the audience in. Veronica's expressions, the pauses in conversations, and the quiet heartbreak in her voice were raw and unfiltered. We could see her hands shake when confronting Micah, her eyes searching for answers, and her disappointment when explanations fell short. It was hard not to empathize with her. She became the lens through which viewers experienced the dissonance between Micah's public image and his private choices. Tension built over episodes as the audience noticed the recurring pattern. On camera, Micah spoke about commitment and shared values, presenting a version of himself that matched TLC's carefully crafted narrative. Off-camera, or glimpsed in fleeting moments edited into the show, there were glimpses of a different Micah, one drawn to the allure of the city, parties, and freedom from family constraints. Veronica's responses became the emotional center of the story, a mirror reflecting the disparity between image and reality. Her heartbreak was not melodramatic or exaggerated, it was deeply human. Viewers could feel the frustration and confusion she carried, and it made the narrative even more compelling. Every glance, every tearful pause, reminded us that while cameras capture storylines, emotions are impossible to fabricate. In that way, Veronica emerged as a voice of authenticity amid the carefully edited spectacle of TLC, showing audiences that being lied to or misled isn't just drama, it's a real lived experience with consequences. The breaking point came subtly, almost unbearably. Scenes where she questioned him directly about nights out, about stories that didn't match, or about unspoken promises became the turning moments. Each instance wasn't just a plot beat, it was an emotional revelation for the audience, forcing them to confront the reality that Micah's life was more complicated, messier, and less heroic than the camera often suggested. It's in these intimate, honest reactions from Veronica that viewers connected most deeply. Her vulnerability, combined with Micah's evasions or selective honesty, created a tension that no amount of cinematic polish could hide. The audience was left rooting for her to find clarity and truth, even as Micah's double life hovered like a shadow over their story. By the end of this arc, it was clear the relationship wasn't just about romance. It was a lens through which the audience could see the cost of carefully curated images, the tension between private desire and public expectation, and the human consequences of living life partly for the camera. Veronica became more than a supporting character. She was the emotional compass pointing to the truth behind the golden boy image that TLC had sold. As Micah's dual life started spilling into the open, the tension between him and Veronica grew impossible to ignore. The episodes depicted moments of distance, subtle arguments, and the slow erosion of trust that many viewers had already sensed off-screen. On camera there were arguments that looked small at first, a missed call here, a forgotten commitment there, but as the story progressed, these small cracks widened into larger, more visible divides. TLC captured some of these moments in a way that made the emotional stakes clear. We saw Veronica frustrated, hurt, and searching for answers, while Micah seemed caught between defending himself and maintaining his public image. Despite these clear signs of strain, the editing choices on the show often softened Micah's image. Even as his late nights, social activities, and contradictions emerged, he was still framed as the ambitious young man trying to succeed in Los Angeles. His modeling shoots, disciplined mornings, and moments of charm were highlighted, balancing the tension and keeping audiences sympathetic. In some ways, the show seemed reluctant to let viewers see him completely unravel. The narrative favored a story arc that would sell the golden boy battling the challenges of independence while still being inherently likable. This is where TLC's role becomes critical. Producers and editors shape reality TV in subtle but powerful ways. Scenes are selected, dialogue is trimmed, and even pauses or reactions are strategically placed to create a perception. On Micah's storyline, the editing often emphasized moments of humor, charm, or introspection, while minimizing the nights out or the lifestyle inconsistencies that contrasted with his public persona. What appeared to viewers as a coherent story was in reality a carefully curated presentation, balancing drama with marketable appeal. There are clear examples from the show where this editorial shaping is evident. One moment shows Veronica visibly upset over a disagreement, yet the surrounding scenes quickly cut to Micah smiling with friends or participating in his modeling shoots. The juxtaposition makes it feel like a single narrative beat. He faces challenges but overcomes them with poise, keeping him sympathetic. Similarly, arguments that lasted minutes in real time were condensed into short, digestible segments, removing nuance and sometimes the weight of the betrayal. The audience sees tension, but not the full emotional toll, leaving room for interpretation and, arguably, manipulation of empathy. This dynamic raises questions about the responsibility of reality TV producers. By protecting marketable images, they can shield stars from full accountability while still presenting conflict that drives ratings. Micah's arc is a textbook case. The show allows glimpses of his nightlife and relational missteps, but these moments are balanced with scenes of ambition, family interaction, and charm. The Golden Boy narrative survives because the editorial choices favor it. The fallout between Micah and Veronica, however, could not be fully masked. Episodes reveal the slow unraveling of trust, the arguments that could no longer be ignored, and the quiet separation that follows. Veronica's emotional honesty shines through, emphasizing that no amount of editing can erase genuine feelings of betrayal or heartbreak. Viewers witness the consequences of a double life playing out in front of cameras, love strained, trust broken, and relationships tested under the glare of both public scrutiny and private contradictions. TLC's role in this is complicated. On one hand, the network creates content that is engaging, dramatic, and marketable, the formula that drives subscription numbers and viewer loyalty. On the other, that same curation protects characters from facing the full moral weight of their actions on screen. For fans watching, it becomes a balancing act. They want drama, but they also crave authenticity. With Micah's storyline, they got both. A compelling tale of ambition and allure, but also a cautionary example of how reality can be shaped and softened for the camera. Ultimately, the fallout is more than just personal drama. It's an illustration of the tension between human behavior and television storytelling. We see Veronica's heartbreak, Micah's selective honesty, and the subtle ways editing crafts a palatable narrative. The audience is left questioning what is real, what is performance, and how much of a story we are consuming versus a person's life. As Micah's separation from Veronica becomes undeniable on screen, viewers are forced to reckon with the consequences. Relationships can fracture, trust can erode, and emotions can be left raw, all while a network carefully constructs a story that is both sympathetic to the star and compelling compelling to watch. The fallout is deeply human, yet always filtered through the lens of production decisions, reminding us that in reality TV, even heartbreak is part of the show. As the dust settled on Micah's storyline, one thing became impossible to ignore: the mask he wore. On camera, he was the polished, ambitious model in the making, the golden boy breaking free from the farm, chasing dreams in Los Angeles, and building a disciplined, enviable life. But behind that curated image, viewers and Veronica saw fragments of something very different. The late nights, hints of a nightlife, and private decisions all contrasted sharply with the story being told on screen. That tension, between the face presented to the audience and the life lived off-camera, became the central theme of his narrative. It's worth pausing here to look at how this mask fits into the wider Plath family arc. Micah wasn't the only one grappling with the weight of expectation versus authenticity. Moria, for instance, has repeatedly pushed back against the strictures of family life, carving out a sense of independence and asserting her personal identity, even when it clashed with parental expectations. Ethan and Olivia each have had their own struggles, negotiating how much of themselves to reveal to the public and how much to maintain for private life. And of course, the backdrop of Kim and Barry's divorce adds another layer, showing that even parental figures can be caught between public image and personal reality. Micah's dual life is in many ways an extension of a recurring theme in the Plath household: the challenge of navigating honesty, desire, and public scrutiny. Veronica's perspective, however, offers the clearest window into the emotional consequences of these masks. On screen, her discomfort was palpable. She confronted Micah when discrepancies became undeniable, and viewers could feel her frustration, disappointment, and heartbreak. She wasn't just reacting to a partner's choices, she was witnessing the gap between the version of someone marketed for television and the private truth they were living. And that gap, as the show revealed, came at a high emotional cost. This brings us to a larger reflection about reality TV itself. Editing, framing, and selective storytelling don't just shape characters, they shape emotions, relationships, and even the audience's perception of truth. Micah's curated persona made him likable, but it also created tension, confusion, and ultimately betrayal. Veronica's experiences remind us that behind every storyline is a person navigating real feelings and consequences, often with very little control over how the world sees them. For the audience, this tension invites reflection. Who are we really watching? The heroic, polished Micah that TLC wants us to admire, or the glimpses of reality that slip through, the parties, the late nights, the contradictions? The answer may not be simple. It challenges fans to think critically about how much of what we consume as reality is actually curated, and how much is genuine human experience. In many ways, the Plath family saga becomes a mirror for our own assumptions about authenticity. Every sibling, every parent, every relationship is negotiating the same tension: who they are, who they appear to be, and how those versions align or conflict. Micah's story, Veronica's heartbreak, and the editing choices all highlight the cost of this negotiation, not just for the individuals involved, but for viewers who invest emotionally in their journeys. So, as we step back from the screen, the question lingers: who do you believe? Is it the version of Micah that the show built for us, the charming and ambitious young man chasing his dreams? Or is it the reality glimpsed in private moments, the mistakes, contradictions, and truths that couldn't be fully hidden? I want to hear from you. Comment below with your thoughts on Micah's story and the fallout with Veronica. Do you think TLC gave us the full picture, or was it all carefully curated drama? Don't forget to hit like if this episode breakdown brought clarity, and subscribe to Sister Wives Chapter and Reality Scandals Daily to keep up with all the latest Plath family revelations. There's so much more drama, truth, and behind-the-scenes insight coming, and I promise you don't want to miss it. Because in the end, the story of Micah and Veronica isn't just about one couple, it's about trust, honesty, and the masks we all wear, on TV and in life. And as viewers, it's up to us to decide which side of the story feels real.